Hello, my loves. Let's get ready. And hello. Let me move this a little bit closer. So I hope you can see me well and hear me well. Welcome to episode 3 of Nova Holistic, where today we are going to talk about spirit, the aspect of self as it pertains to health and well-being. So let's begin. I want to get into it straight away because there's quite a bit that I want to talk to you about today. So most commonly, even today, when we are mentioning spirit, people will automatically perceive this to mean, spirituality in some way. Let's face it, there's all sorts of belief systems and opinions about this thing called spirituality. So, as I was thinking about today's episode, I decided that I'm going to talk to you about this a little bit in terms of a very broad, very loose historical timeline as to what spirituality would have been seen over sort of in history. I made some notes, of course, as I usually do, so I might refer to them as I go in this section or in this episode. Holy moly, we are just coming out of Mercury retrograde, as in still in shadow, but coming out of Mercury retrograde, and I have to tell you, my mouth is still trying to reconnect with the brain or the thoughts or the speed at which, the central processing unit is processing information and the speed at which I can get things out. So please excuse me. Anywho, let's carry on. So, spirituality. So, of course, we all know that way back when, as the Roman Catholic Church came more and more into power, and we had the Dark Ages, etc., spirituality was seen as a devotional practice to God, where religious figures were the figures that were thought to be in direct relationship to God, and you could only have contact or be in service to God through these religious figures. Fast forward to, the more recent past, like the 60s and the 70s, and, this quantum leap into a different kind of spirituality where there was this awakening of spirituality through a behavior, a culture, a lifestyle. So, the anti-Vietnam War movements and the hippies and Woodstock and, you know, Peace Baby and all of, that sort of stuff. Also, spirituality, still devotional type spirituality, where all of a sudden there were, there's this whole thing about Hare Krishnas, the orange, the shaved head, dancing around on the street and sort of singing Hare Krishna, and hippies in the park and all of that sort of stuff that happened, where there was more of an individuation of of people under the banner of spirituality, or certainly the early beginnings of it, and freedom to choose, and all of those sorts of things. I mean, I don't have to give you a history lesson, but I'm just giving you a really broad overview as it relates to, perhaps collectively, in the collective consciousness, to spirituality. And then again, fast forward, quantum leaping more to a time when I first began my journey of consciously embodying spirituality, which was in the 80s. Where when I began my journey, spirituality was shifting from not shifting, let me put it differently. It was changing and just beginning, from the perspective of my awareness, to come more into, I want to say into the lounge room, like more into the everyday family, just the very, very early days of this. The lady responsible for, responsible, my mentor, my absolute beautiful divine teacher, the lady that taught me meditation way back in 1989, she was also the one that taught me about pranic healing, meaning healing through the chakra system with the assistance of crystals. And she was also the one that taught me how to read tarot with the good old Rider-Waite. And I studied under her for many, many years to come, decades, in fact. Her and her family became like my family. But spirituality, even then, in those days, as it was coming more into the lounge room, was about meditation and prayer to something outside of ourselves. So up there, up outside of our, like the angelic realms, the, all of that sort of stuff. And quite often there were still pockets of communities that were like holding the space for this spirituality to anchor in this physical dimension. So there'd be like gurus and healers and communions, community groups, like, there were many leaders in, babas, like, when I first started all those years ago, my spiritual teacher Rosie, she would travel to India and go and see a spiritual leader in India called Sai Baba. Then there was, Osho, and, there've been so many. So people, if they wanted to take the journey of spirituality, would often have to go to these, big concert halls, or have some sort of a devotional practice where they travel and they spend time in these groups, etc. It wasn't maybe something that was openly lived every day. So, as I'm thinking about spirituality and embodying the way of spirit in a person's life, I guess what I want to say to you is our throughout history, even our more recent history, the life of embodying spirit into everyday was more conditional, as in it was often about having to make some sort of a connection to the divine outside of yourself in some way. You had to go to a group, or you had to completely, like, like sever ties to 3D almost, and then take some sort of a what's that word, when you go on like a quest to oh my god, one of you will know. It'll probably come to me as soon as I hang up. A quest to a to some sort of, like to a community or to church or anything along those lines. And although aspects of this are still available today, it seemed to me, right, by the time we hit the noughties, as in the year 2000, the collective consciousness was changing, had begun to change and shift enough for it to begin to take the next quantum leap. And so I observed that about 20 years into my journey, around 2000, maybe 5, 6, 7, 8, we really, there was this big push into the next phase of this evolution of spirit embodiment in through the physical body and into our lounge rooms and into our daily lives. I can't believe it. I just said it out loud. By the time 2008 came, 2009, I was already 20 years into that journey. Wow. Okay. All of us, what I observed, that was shortly after I got my qualification. I got my qualification as a holistic counselor. All of a sudden, there was a whole heap of people that were suddenly remembering and giving themselves permission to talk about their feelings. It was massive, where we were spending so much time on the mind and our thoughts, and just going through the motions of, that mental stimulation. all of a sudden, I started to see an influx of people that wanted to understand their feelings, where they just couldn't push down the emotional body anymore, and they started to talk about their feelings. And of course, once this began to to be charged, as in the energy was waking up, this whole aspects of self that had been asleep or dormant or unacknowledged, everything started to rattle. Um, can I just, while we are doing this, there is a, I have to, speaking about using your throat chakra to activate a really beautiful energy, I'm going to share something with you. So, in the comments via YouTube, there is a person that is sending really inappropriate messages. That is, so what happens is sometimes is when people are talking about something that's really significant on YouTube, you get these energies, these really negative, dense energies that come in, and they do like a disruptive process, hoping to get some sort of a reaction. That kind of proceeds to feed, either ego or, negative dense energy, and kind of interrupt and disrupt. Um, and so I'm just going to block this user, thank them for a teaching moment, and may God help you, seriously. Okay, we're just going to block that and move on. All right. So, as I was saying, then at the sort of the first decade of the 2000s, there was this mass shake up in the collective energy that then proceeded to activate the next layer of evolution of spirit or spirituality. So if you think back to about that time, that was when all of a sudden there was this birth of rebirth of things like going to yoga as a health and well-being practice, meditation as a health and well-being practice, more accentuating more um, nutrition, to the point where these days, of course, there's a lot more information available around, healthy eating, how nutrition is a key component of health and well-being, and exactly how it can help and support you. The raw and vegan movements, or as in ways of living and being, all of those sorts of things. Over the last, 10 to 15 years, there's been an enormous shift in collective consciousness to the way spirit, an aspect of self, and spirituality is perceived. Which then, takes me to explaining to you why I actively work with, participate, and explain spirit as being a component of who you are, in your wholeness. When I talk about spirit in terms of health and well-being, um, it really is about you understanding your highest potential in terms of that more unseen, subconscious guidance and the power of the moment, right? So let me explain. Um, I'm just having a look at my notes just to be more clearer, just to make sure that I explain to you exactly what I mean when I'm talking about spirit as an aspect of self in this new or within this new collective consciousness in the 21st century. So, what would spirit then look like, and how to recognize it in your life today? So, you could think of it in this way. Um, the first and most important aspect of spirit within you is that it comes from within you. That's the biggest difference between what it's been historically and the way it's approached or viewed or worked with today. Spirit is not out there. Spirituality is not out there. It's not something you have to chase. It's not something that you have to, do in order to become worthy or, devote or, bow to some other force outside of yourself in order to practice spirituality. That's not it at all. Your spirituality comes from within you. Spirituality, the practice of recognizing your spirit, is as simple as closing your eyes and focusing your mind and your awareness within you, and then taking a deep breath in and breathing out. That act of investing your focus inward, wills to being still in stillness, and taking a breath is an act of spirituality. This is really important to understand. So, by extension, stillness, number one, slowing down your breath, number two, body awareness, which is what you need in order to focus within you, right? Number three, are all components of spirituality. So instead of your devotion being only external, there is an act, it's an act of investment into yourself inwardly to get to know those parts of yourself within you that reclaim some of that attention and energy that we so easily give to outside circumstances, other people, our jobs, our kids, our families, loved ones, money, institutions, houses, cars, blah, 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 blah. Never ending stream of external blah. Again, I'm reinforcing the point that I've been making since the beginning about how just reinvesting for 5 minutes, shifting your focus from out there back into here will change your life significantly. That's a massive difference to the way spirituality has been viewed traditionally. Excuse me. The other thing that's also very important is anchoring your focus in the present moment, meaning understanding that right now, this moment is the only thing that's real. The future doesn't exist yet, and the past is past, it's gone. This moment, right now, when I close my eyes and I bring my attention within, just to this moment, and I observe how my hands feel when they touch. I observe how my voice sounds different when I'm focused within than what I hear it to be when I'm looking at the camera. I'm observing how my chest expands as I take a deep breath in, and I fill up with oxygen. And how it contracts when I exhale. This is the only moment that is available, that's real, that is available to me right now. And from this moment of increasing, let's look at physiologically, right? So I have my spirit activated, I have a strong, meaningful connection to my body. My focus is just in this moment and within. I'm increasing my oxygen intake into my body. Oxygen is, for example, hitting my brain. A bigger intake, it's keeping, I'm able to clear thinking, to have clear thinking or think clearly, even better. My brain is getting the message of ease and peace, and it's producing the good shit chemicals, the dopamines, endorphins, serotonin, etc., as opposed to cortisol hormones and other things that are more detrimental to your health and well-being. And if I just stop and do this for 5 minutes every day, I'm setting new neuro pathways that are conditioned to respond in a way that increases my health and well-being. So even if my job is just as busy, my kids are still driving me crazy, I've got a million things to do every day, I've got 1,000 bills to pay, for 5 minutes every day, I can just be fully present and give my body the opportunity to replenish. Now, these are all unseen, right? They belong to the paradigm or the aspect of the spirit, because here's another layer of this. The stronger your relationship is to yourself within, the stronger and sharper your intuition becomes, your gut feeling, your sixth sense. And that is that more metaphysical aspect of your being or aspect of spirit, where you become more sensitive to your intuition, to your gut feel. And the more sensitive you are, the more likely these internal gut feels are going to be your sixth sense. The more you listen to it, the more that gut sense, sixth sense and gut feel proves you right or correct, or you recognize it as good guidance, the more likely you are to begin to trust it and allow it to help guide you in your life. So when you have decisions to make, you are not restricting yourself only to left brain analytical processing. You are also then able to consider the what ifs of the right brain, the imagination, the creativity. You're able to consider or take into consideration how you feel about the different options by allowing your emotional body to contribute to the decision-making process. And then also alongside of that, allow your intuition to contribute and guide you. So all of a sudden, anything you do in your life, any decision you have to make is being guided by your highest potential, all of the parts of you, not just one little part of you, not just the left brain, not just some sort of a, ego-driven impulse. You are whole within. You are an extraordinary team when all of these things work together. All of these parts of you work together. And you are able to make the absolute highest possible decision, the best decision for you in your life in that moment. This is why the aspect of spirit embodied is so important. Spirit and spirituality in terms of health and well-being is very much an inside job. Very, very much an inside job. It's not dependent on what anybody else says. It's not dependent on, I mean, you know, any kind of shift in consciousness, right? Collectively, is usually on Earth, is probably going to have a polarity ripple effect, right? So, meaning there'll be positive aspects to it, and then there will be some negative aspects to it. So, some of the things that we are still healing in terms of this earthly realm and polarity consciousness is, there are literally some people that, that will, that speak to spirit and spirituality in terms of, if you don't do yoga and you're not vegan, you're not spiritual enough, or you're not spiritual at all. Um, if you're I I mean, I have heard this so many times, like it's utterly ridiculous. Um, that the more spiritual you get, the less likely you want to eat, and you can just feed on the on the the photons and the electromagnetic impulses that are pulsating through the gut. I mean, all of that may be true, but we are so not there yet. We don't even know how to begin to consciously neutralize polarity consciousness. So, to in any way, shape, or form suggest that, a true spiritual being will levitate in the corner in their lounge room at some point rather than just sitting up or lying down is utterly ridiculous. Utterly ridiculous. Um, and certainly not that needs to be the truth for the collective consciousness. Otherwise, you're not really spiritual. Even the angelic realms and talking to different dimensional consciousness, etc., even that booms from within, from inside out, rather than something that we have to earn as a result of, I don't know what, whatever, um, outside of ourselves. Okay, we're already at 38 minutes. I'm going to stop here. I hope that was a little bit insightful. I hope that it gave you clarity around, at the very least, a different perspective or a perspective of what I mean when I talk about spirit within the context of wholeness, health, and well-being, and how this is important on a daily basis as we bring spirit and spirituality, which is the practice of spirit, into our daily practice at home, at work, etc., everywhere. Yeah. So there's enough spiritual awakening now on the planet to be able to talk about this freely without being ridiculed, although that still exists, but that's like a no-brainer these days. Anyway, any questions, please write to me. Now, I just wanted to make a note. I wanted to note, let me actually do this first. So last week I mentioned that I was going to have a guest on this show this week. Unfortunately, due to a shift in circumstances, for my beautiful naturopath friend and colleague. She was not able to be a guest today, which is why today I spoke about spirituality. Dominique's going to be a guest on the show, but we're going to have to do something a little bit differently and pre-record the session, and then I will post it as a live broadcast over the next couple of weeks. I'm working on some other guests, and I can't wait to share them with you. They'll be really exciting. Finally, for more information about my work, if you have any more questions, if you want to have a conversation, book a conversation, a free 15-minute consultation with me in order for us to work together, please go to my website and we can take it from there. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you. Like, share. If you're on YouTube, subscribe. Much love. See you next time. See you next week. Bye, my loves.